So, one thing I think that's really important for us to be reassured as we're sort of bending the branch between food and climate, a very maybe familiar impact space for you into one that may be less familiar. We're drilling down, we're not changing focus. The way that we look at these impact pillars is a valuable way for you to anchor your messages, but we are not changing our programmatic focus, jeopardizing your mission, or risking mission creep. And we're not contorting messaging to the point of non-recognition, nor contorting to the point of not being authentic to the origins of our mission, our theory of change. So I also think that that's important to reassure all of us in this work that we're not at the risk of that scope creep or mission creep in our work. So, first, what are your impact pillars? A solution in this space can create a range of impacts. Some are quite obvious, and some of these can be very specific within our work. There's a lot of content that I have in the workbook around this, but this is a brief illustration of how you can almost imagine it, of these specific themes that you see on the left-hand side: environmental, social, financial, and economic, and then going into solution sets specifically like food loss and waste, food security, access and nutrition, plant-centric diets, et cetera, on this left side, and then reminding you to almost do that double click on each of those topics that are most relevant to you to start harvesting those different impacts and those reminders for what's going to build our key messages. So I showed this example initially of the environmental impact pillar, and reminding you that we can double click, of course, on energy consumption, climate change more broadly, biodiversity loss, which, for those of you working on soil health and regen ag, of course, is really important. Water waste, soil degradation, GHG emissions, and landfill usage. So this just is a reminder for the fact that we have more assets at our disposal than we may feel at certain points. So to give you sort of a concrete example of how something like this might go in a practical sense in your work, because you may be like, okay, Eva, how does this actually apply? So many of you most likely have an impact report or something similar that you either share externally, on your website and with a broader audience, or perhaps just with your board or internal stakeholders. That likely provides a really nice overview of all the summary of impact that you've provided over the past year in your work. And you may even be putting something like this together as you're doing grant applications, or providing a sort of overview of your work to potential funders. And this is an example actually from one of our past cohort organizations, doing incredible work in the New England area. And I've actually taken a screenshot of their impact by numbers that you can see here on the left-hand side, that provides the some financial numbers in terms of the production of financial value. And then we have this red circle here, the poundage of produce distributed to the amount of people, and then some additional assets that this organization had created. Of course, this impact report is amazing, gives a great, and of course, this is just a snapshot of it. There's an entire report to it, but this is an amazing set of highlights about their work. But showing you this example, in particular, of identifying what are the pieces of this that are most relevant to us in this environmental and climate conversation. So I circled in on the 14,000 pounds of food, which I recognize as something that we can do that double click on. It's an amazing story, but it's not the full one. So we can double click on this to tell us, okay, poundage, how many meals did that create? What that is, I think, is a really important example for those of you who are touching food, and in food rescue and food recovery, to contextualize it in a bit more of a social sense. So how many meals does this create? Hint here, Feeding America has a meal calculator, and there's other ways to do this. but 1.2 pounds of food is typically, 1.2 pounds of food is typically considered one meal. And then how many GHGs or diversion potential did this create? Again, a hint here is you can use the Refed Insights engine or the EPA calculator. And again, I'm providing this example on the food waste side, but there's many other ways and examples depending on the other type of work that you may be doing, either in soil and regen ag or food access and food deserts. But just trying to keep this really concrete for you. So we sort of pass it through this climate lens with those calculators that I mentioned. And then you see here on the right-hand side, ta-da, all of these impact results that provide the GHG footprint of this diversion potential of that 14,000 pounds of food. It provides the water footprint, how much water we saved. And again, finally, that meals recovered number. So this hopefully illustrates to you this really powerful opportunity for us to harvest more of those impact numbers that we may not have thought to focus on in our conversations with funders, but that are actually there in our work. So again, this just gives you that summary of we've provided this set of numbers about the impact of our work. We've put it through the climate lens, which I realize here is intended to be an oven, which may be a little too on the nose considering we're trying to cool the climate down, but bear with me for the purposes of teaching this. We pass it through the climate lens, and then again, recap here on the right of these additional impact results. And to think these could have been put into a report. There's more stories to tell in all of our amazing work, and this therefore creates that opportunity for the next impact report to have additional impact numbers, and especially those around environment and climate. So one of the things that I think is really important for you to do as you advance in this course, and I'm happy to discuss this with you in our one-on-one sessions, is for you to focus on establishing your impact pillars. I want you to review the different solution areas and their possible impact pillars in the workbook. Again, all of this is provided in more depth in the workbook. I just provided a few examples today. Then checking all of the ones that apply to your organization. And maybe I've missed some in this process. So make sure you jot down any additional impact areas that may be exceptionally relevant to your organization. Maybe you work with a very specific type of population. Maybe you work around a very specific technology application or something like that. So you'll curate it in a way that makes the most sense to you. But we attempted to make this as comprehensive as possible. And I'll look forward to having those conversations with you to help you make some more sense of that. So let's keep moving.